Hello, and welcome to Robotics for All's Fusion 360 curriculum. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you some of the tools that you can use to modify your 3D shapes. The first one that I'm going to start out with is the Hole tool. Since the Hole tool is used on an object, I'm going to create an object first. I'm creating a sketch here, and I'm going to make a polygon, which is just one out of many shapes you can choose. Next up, I'm just going to press pull this shape into a 3D object so that we have a place on which to put our hole. So you have to put a hole on a point, so I'm going to make a sketch and then make a point on this sketch that the hole is going to be centered on. What's great about holes is that they're more customizable than regular extruded cylinders. You can specify the tap or thread, you can specify a countersink or counterbore, and a lot of other things as well. So I'm just dimensioning it so that this point is at the spot that I want it to be. And now I can use the Hole tool. The Hole tool is under the Create menu with the keyboard shortcut H. And I'm just going to click on this point at which I want the hole. And as you can see, there are lots of different options here. I can make it tapped. I can make it just a clearance hole. I can make it a simple hole. And I can change the drill point. And obviously you can change the diameter of the hole itself, the size of the countersink or counterbore, and all of those things. So I'm just going to make it a pretty simple hole with a countersink, and I'm going to click OK to make the hole. So that's it for the hole. The next feature that I'm going to show you is called circular pattern. Circular pattern is similar to the circular pattern in the 2D workspace, but it's just that it's in the 3D workspace. So I'm going to click on circular pattern, and you just have to select the object that you want to pattern, and then select the axis that you want to pattern around. In this case, I can just pattern it around the z-axis because I centered my shape on the z-axis. If you didn't do that, then you should make an axis that you want to rotate around. You have several different options here. You can change how far you want it to go. I'm going to go for full. You can change how many you want. I'm going to make 6 because there are 6 sides. And the compute option right here is just how Fusion 360 deals with the circular pattern. Usually you want to use optimize because it's the fastest, but if optimize isn't working for your feature, then you should change it to identical, which is a little bit slower but more compatible. And you can also use adjust, which is the slowest of the 3, but if none of the other 2 are working, then you should use that one. So I'm just going to click OK, and that'll create a circular pattern of all of those holes. The tool that I'm going to talk about is rectangular pattern, which is also similar to the rectangular pattern in the 2D workspace, and it can help you make patterns that are rectangular as opposed to circular. So it is in the same menu as the circular pattern. It's right here, and it's basically the same thing. You just have to choose the object. Here I'm going to choose a body because this is a body, and then I chose it. And then for direction, you choose the axis that you want to stretch it in. Not stretch, you want to copy it in. And then you can use the arrows to drag it, or alternatively, you can use the numbers here to adjust what you want to do. And of course, you can also do another direction if you'd like. And you can drag it or use numbers to specify it. And this is pretty simple, and if I click OK, it'll create all of those copies of the object. You can use this for any feature, a hole, or an entire object. Alright, now that I've done this, I'm just going to delete it because I don't want to deal with this many copies of the same object. I'm going to go back to my original object and show the next tool in today's lesson. So we have holes that can be tapped, but what if you had a screw or a rod that you want to make threads on? And that's where the thread tool will come in. So to make it, we're going to first make a cylinder, which you can do by either using the sketch and extrusion, or you can also just do it by using the create shape tool. In this one, I'm just going to extrude it. So I made a sketch, and I'm just gonna press pull this into a cylinder. And after I've done that, I can use the thread tool. You can use the thread tool on a hole as well, and it'll basically do the same thing as the one you right in the hole tool. So select the face on which you want to make the threads, and then you can change all of the options. You can see there's a lot of standards for threads that you want to use. You can change the size, the designation, class, and whether it turns right hand or left hand. This is really useful because you don't have to actually know what dimensions the threads are. You can just choose the size that you want and it'll do it for you. And the modeled here is an important option. If you turn it off, it will just make a thread that's cosmetic. That is, you can see it, but it's not actually modeled in the model. This can make it a little faster on your computer, but also you can't actually know what shape it is. So if you click modeled, it'll actually make the shape. It's pretty convenient, so I'm just going to keep it modeled here. Click OK. And there's the thread. So that was also pretty simple, and the thread option really makes it easy to make threaded cylinders or screws. The next tool that I'm going to introduce is also something that you might have done in the 2D sketch workspace, but just in now in the 3D one. The tool that I'm going to talk about is mirror. So instead of using a line to mirror across, like in 2D sketching, in three-dimensional objects, you're going to use a plane to mirror around. So I'm going to choose my objects and then select the mirror plane. You can use any plane you want. In this case, I'm going to use the plane on the side of this object so that I can make another one. And there you have it. That's two objects. And obviously the mirror tool is pretty useful if you have something that's symmetrical along a plane, and you can just model one half of it and then just do it again by mirroring it, which is much easier than trying to do the whole thing in some cases. Now that I've demonstrated the mirror tool, I'm going to delete it again because I don't want to deal with two copies of the same object. Next up, I'm going to show a feature that you'll find pretty useful, but it is a small tool that can be used in Fusion 360, and that is fillet. Remember that it is pronounced fillet, not fillet as in the fish cut. So the fillet tool is right here in modify, and what it does is that it smooths out your edges. So I'm just going to quickly flip to the bottom of this object, and then I'm going to choose all the edges that I want to fillet. Here you can specify the radius. I'm going to make it 0.125 for a small fillet. So I'm just going to choose a bunch of edges. As you can see right here, you can make a selection of multiple edges, and you can make all of them the same radius. Sorry. Okay, so now that we're back here, you can see that it smooths out the edges, and this just changes the style of your corner. In this case, it doesn't matter for this object in particular. I'm going to click OK, and that creates some fillets. Those are nice rounded edges that might be useful if you're making an object that is of a hard material or an object that people are going to touch. A smooth edge can really help with how it feels. The next tool is very similar to fillet, but it's just in a different style, and that's called chamfer. Chamfer is very similar, except that instead of smoothing it out completely, it just cuts it across for a straight edge, and that is a different effect than fillet, but it achieves a similar goal of making the object smoother to the touch. So again, you can choose more than one edge. I'm going to choose all the top edges of this object, and then I'm going to specify the distance as 0.125 inches. And there are a bunch of specifications you can use. I'm just going to do equal distance because my chamfers are going to be at a 45-degree angle. Click OK, and that creates the chamfer. So as you can see, now this object has smoothed out edges, or edges that have chamfers, which makes it a little easier to touch and unlikely to cut someone if they were handling the object. Next up, I'm going to be showing a tool that is not the most relevant to the object that is currently here. So I'm going to be creating a new object and showcasing the tool on that object. So I'm just going to make a box, a simple box, and doesn't matter what size it is. You can use this tool on most shapes. So here's the box, and the tool that I'm going to be using is shell. What shell does is that it hollows out an object so that it has a thin wall, and this can make it lighter and maybe make it better for certain applications. Here you can specify the inside thickness. I'm going to make it 0.1 inches, which is reasonable. And this just creates a shell so that you can use this for whatever purpose you're using it for. And that's it for shell, which is a pretty simple tool. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the combine tool, which is a useful tool for certain applications. What combine does is that it allows you to combine two shapes together, but not only can you do that, you can also do other operations. And obviously you have to do that on more than one object, so I'm going to make another sphere. Again, obviously you can do this on anything you want. I'll make this a new body so that I can showcase how this is done. So here I have two objects. I'm going to move this sphere to here, move it up a little. Okay, and now I'm going to use the combine method. All you have to do is select the bodies that you want to use, and this is the target body and this is the tool body. So the target body is the one that you're doing the operation on. So you can join them, which just makes them one object, or you can cut them, which cuts the tool body out from the target body. But you can also use the intersect tool, which only preserves the part that intersects between the two bodies. This obviously looks a little weird, but there are applications in which this tool can be really useful for creating shapes that are unique or creating shapes that might be really hard to get via other tools. And this tool is going to be the last one that I'm going to teach today, and it's called Align. It's a really useful tool for when you want to put two objects together and align their faces together. So to start, I'm going to open my browser, not browser, but my project manager, and then bring in the object I just made earlier. I'm going to insert it into the current design. And just move it a little bit so we can see both of them. And now I'm going to use the Align tool. What it does is that it puts two faces together, which can be really useful for some circumstances. So as you can see, if I do that, then it'll put them on the same plane, which in this case is not the most ideal thing, but I can flip it. And now you can see that let me rotate it. Now you can see that those two planes are coinciding. And yeah, that just makes it. And now, obviously, I can still move them around because this is not a joint. That will be taught in a future class. But this just makes it easier to position objects along faces and could be useful in many applications. That's about it for today's class. We learned about how to use tools that can modify or enhance your 3D objects. And good luck on your future classes, and thank you for watching.